Good evening, everyone. The April 9th, 2024 Kingsport City Schools Board of Education business meeting is now called to order. And I'd like for Dr. True to introduce our special guests, our first of the special guests for tonight.
Thank you very much. And we do want to welcome everyone to our board meeting this evening, and especially welcome two very special young gentlemen that are going to come help me with the pledge tonight. And so we're going to ask Abel and Boone Marsh to come on up. Oh. And I'm going to try to remember, because if I remember correctly, it's Abel and Boone. Did I get it right? Yes. They're related, if you didn't notice. So, guys, you are at Kennedy Elementary School. What grade are you all in?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten. And who is your teacher?
Miss Nida. Miss Wikes.
It's not. And so, when you guys are at school, like when you were at school today, what was just the most favoriteest, bestest thing you did at school today? Eat snack. Okay, solid. What about you?
Play outside.
Play outside. It's a nice day. What's it?
We didn't play outside, April.
You guys can discuss that later. We can figure that out. It's kind of rainy today, wasn't it? Well, we're glad you're here to do the pledge, and we're glad that everyone is here to join us. And are you guys ready? I know you've been practicing. You ready to go? Flag is over my shoulder back this way, so we're going to ask everybody if you would please stand. The flag is right there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the year at Kennedy. I'm sure that you're doing wonderful things over there. We're so glad that you spent some time with us here tonight. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to accept the agenda, which includes the consent agenda. Once the agenda is accepted, the board mutually agrees not to discuss any item of business or take any action that has not been accepted for the agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And second? Second. Okay, it's just a disclaimer. We are going through a little bit of a learning curve tonight. We're using some different software for our meeting. So if we run just a smidge slower tonight, that's why. So I think, are we ready? Okay. And so if you will, the voting is open, so please cast your vote. Okay, and now all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're going to move on now. This is the time when members of the audience are invited to comment on agenda items. It is not the time to speak about personnel issues, as there are more appropriate ways in which these can be addressed. If you aren't sure how to do this, please ask one of us after the meeting. In your remarks, you may not refer to students by name without permission from the parent or guardian. If you would like to speak on a topic not included on the agenda, you're asked to submit your request in writing to the Superintendent of Schools at least 3 business days prior to the scheduled date of the meeting. Now, if you would like to speak about an item included on tonight's agenda, please raise your hand. I request that you state your name and limit your remarks to a maximum of 3 minutes. Okay, so seeing none, we will move along to our recognitions. And Mrs. Byers is going to be recognizing some All-State Band, Chorus, and Orchestra members.
Good evening. I am very honored to be able to recognize some outstanding students for their musical performance. Having children that have gone through both the band and the orchestra program, I know how much work has gone into these students that are going to be recognized tonight. You might think, All-State, really, what's that? But you have to understand that All-East is the first step before you get to the infamous All-State. All-East is a tryout that the kids travel to, usually early on Saturday mornings, and lots of nervous energy, lots of chaos in the auditorium as they're all practicing nervously. And then they have 700 or more schools competing for All East. It goes from Cookeville to East Tennessee. So it's a pretty big geography. It's a pretty big deal. But those kids who place in the top chairs get selected to go to state and be part of All State, which combines, of course, East and West. So it's a very big honor. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of determination, and it's just a lot of talent. So with that being said, I just really want people to understand that this is not just a simple little thing. It is a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get where they are. So with that, I'm going to read everybody's name from band, and then I'll do orchestra, and then I'll do choir, and then I'll pass out the certificates because I think it was a little chaotic trying to get them signed ahead of time, so I don't think they're all in alphabetical order. And I want to say an extra congratulations to our orchestra students. I know that sounds bad, but they've had such a turmoil with keeping instructors. We're very glad we've got some that are willing to stay, but it's been a little chaotic, so the fact that they've even made it that far and stuck with orchestra through all the chaos, we're extremely thrilled. But band, we have numerous people, so I'd like to recognize Ryder Fitzgerald on the clarinet, Claire Lee on the clarinet. You guys can come stand up front so we can look at you and ooh and ah over you. I like to embarrass kids. Come on, there's lots of room up front. You guys are used to this. You're performers. Come on and show your beautiful outfits. Zoe Young, clarinet. Tori Wright, bassoon. Carolyn Cavanis, alto sax. Luke Nash, tenor sax. Alex Bates, bari sax. Sam Perdue, baritone. Addie Helms, baritone. Grant Smith, baritone. Mason McCoy, tuba. Joseph Michael Bellino, percussion. Jackson Heron, percussion. They all know they're just going. And don't they look lovely? I think they look lovely. Choir, we have Casey Roberts, which is SATB choir. Orchestra, we have Brandon Ing on double bass and Emily Doyle on violin. Congratulations to all of you.
As Ms. Byers is handing out the certificates, we do want to say again, we're so proud of all of you. You bring us a lot of joy with your musical abilities, and we're so thankful that you've chosen to participate in these extracurricular activities. I think for some, this is multiple years of all-state recognition, and it is no small feat to be all-state in anything, and that's the arts included. So we're very proud of you, and if I'm not mistaken, band actually has a concert tonight, so that's one of the reasons why they are so dolled up. And so we wish you the very best, and wish we could be there listening to you instead of here. Again, congratulations. Go get it. And thank you as well to all the directors who put in countless hours. It doesn't just happen overnight, and there's a lot of work of preparation that goes into that. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brandon Fletcher, who will be honoring Dr. Melissa Seaver.
Most wouldn't notice. On behalf of the KCS Board of Education, our very own Dr. Melissa Seaver, Assistant Principal of the John Sevier Middle School here in KCS, was recently named the 2024 Tennessee National Outstanding Assistant Principal by the National Association of Elementary School Principals. Each year, the NAESP recognizes a new class of National Outstanding Assistant Principals. Each year, the NAESP recognizes a new class of these principals. Public school, elementary, and middle level assistant principals are nominated by peers in their state, and final selections are made by committees appointed by each of the NAESP state affiliate offices. Criteria established by the NAESP requires that the individual must be a member of the NAESP at the time of the nomination, is a practicing assistant principal with at least 2 years of experience in that role, demonstrates exceptional leadership in a particular school program, and is respected by and sets high standards for students, colleagues, parents, and the community. And I know you do that. Dr. Seaver previously served for 2 years as associate principal at Jackson Elementary School with Kingsport City Schools. With 18 years of experience at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, she brings a wealth of expertise to her current position. Her tenure in education reflects her dedication to the growth and development of both students and faculty. Dr. Seaver earned her EDD from the University of the Cumberlands, and we're proud to have her. Thank you very much. Okay, I was looking for Mary Beth. Sorry. Mary Beth takes a better picture.
While we commend Dr. Seaver, I think it's important to point out that Sevier Middle School has the 2023 Principal of the Year and the 2024 Assistant Principal of the Year. That's a pretty remarkable accomplishment for a single school, let alone a single district. So kudos to Sevier and especially to Dr. Seaver.
And at this time, if there's anyone who would like to go ahead and be dismissed, we'll have just a very brief recess, or if you'd like to hang in there with us, we would love for you to stay for the rest of our meeting. So at this time, we will go ahead and start the business portion of our meeting with item 4.1, and I'm going to ask if Mr. Bart Rowlett would go ahead and come up. He is our legal expert and has worked on this drafted contract for Dr. Chris Hampton, our superintendent.
Well, good evening. So before the board for its consideration is a contract of employment for your superintendent, Dr. Hampton. This contract will replace the current contract under which Dr. Hampton is employed as superintendent of the Department of Education. It provides for a term commencing June 1st of 2024, extending through May 31st of 2028. That's probably the most significant change. There were changes within sections 5, 6, and 7 regarding to salary and benefits, just to keep Dr. Hampton whole. It's not as easy as just amending the term and nothing else. You've got to change the others to carry over. It does require a new contract. There is a provision in state law that does prohibit a director of schools. I said superintendent a minute ago. That's the old term. Director of schools is what we say now. But it does prohibit a director from serving under a contract of more than 4 years. So this will be a new contract for a 4-year period, since he has already served 1 year under the current contract. So happy to answer any other questions as to the form or legality of the contract that any of the board members may have.
Well, I have one, because our last meeting, we discussed having an extension for a year. to get the superintendent on a 4-year cycle. And to extend it this way, it basically puts him on a 5-year cycle. We can't do a 5-year contract, I get it. But in respect of the superintendent, he may only want a 4-year sentence. Maybe he wants a 5-year sentence. But that was the only thing, is I know in our last meeting, we discussed a 1-year contract extension, and this essentially is giving him a 5-year contract. I know it's not in the same agreement, so don't bite me, Bart. He didn't like when I was talking a 5-year term. So, but that was the only thing, is that we had talked about getting it on a 4-year cycle, because our superintendents around the state are mostly on 4-year cycles, and this is extending it to 5.
My understanding that we were looking to do a 4-year contract from now, so beginning currently, and get him on a 4-year cycle, which is what required us to have a new, instead of just extending the contract, we're actually amending it. So that was my understanding, that we would start with a contract that would begin now and put him on a 4-year cycle to begin currently June 1.
This is a totally
It's a new
different
one.
legal document, right?
Yeah, it's not an amendment, it's a completely new document.
Correct. This contract will, the contract under which Dr. Hampton currently serves will cease to have any effect. This contract supersedes that, considered a renewal or a termination of the existing, and implementation of this new contract to take effect June 1st. So the term under this, yes, he has served 1 year under the current contract. The term under this contract will be for a period of 4 years, or a term of 4 years. I, understand if this contract is approved and Dr. Hampton serves to the end of it, his duration in the position would be for 5 years. That there is no provision in state law that says a director of schools can only hold the position for 4 years. They can, as long as the board will keep them employed, the director can serve for that period. It's just the term of the contract in which they are presently serving cannot be for more than 4 years. Now,
So what was the concern?
At our last meeting, we discussed going to making it a 4-year cycle, and his current contract was not 4 years. So we talked about adding a year to have it him on a 4-year cycle. So adding this whole new contract puts him on a 5-year cycle, a 5-year term. So it's still a 1 year, and so he served 1 year, and now we're on a 4-year contract. So we're taking a new contract, but essentially we're taking a less than 4-year contract and making it a 5-year contract.
I think maybe there was just misunderstanding there, but as I talked with Dr. Hampton, and I apologize if I did not present it clearly, but the goal was to begin a contract that would start currently effective June 1st, now that we have a starting date, and that would go for 4 years. So that was my understanding. That was my intention, was, and in conversation with Dr. Hampton, he agreed to that, and that was his desire as well.
So what's the termination date on the current contract?
the current,
27?
so the current contract would effectively terminate, if you will, I'm sorry. The current contract goes through June 30th of 2026. Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
However, there is essentially an automatic renewal for an additional 1 year if the superintendent had a satisfactory evaluation. So assuming the superintendent had a satisfactory evaluation, then the current contract would end June 30th, 2027.
So do we have to undergo any sort of voting procedure to terminate that contract, to accept this contract?
It could be part and parcel all of one act,
Okay.
terminate, and it would, also, Doctor, the parties can only terminate the current under mutual agreement.
Okay.
Sounds like there's no issue there. As long as the board and Dr. Hampton are in agreement, the current contract is effectively terminated upon mutual agreement, midnight, May 31st, and this contract becomes effective June 1st, 12/01, June 1st of this year.
And I think it actually states in the contract that this supersedes any previous or current contracts.
At which point, a new agreement starts on a 4-year cycle.
I see your point, though.
Well, I guess part of it is, you look historically at where we've been. I mean, we may like somebody for 2 years or 3 years, and then now we've got him. Maybe he's like, enough of you guys aren't much fun. But it was just, we're extending it, per the conversation last time, and I even questioned it, was that we're extending it for 1 year, but it's really a 2-year extension. So that was just the change.
Chris, you good with this?
Yes, I think that's much appreciated, yes, thank you.
Then I'm good with it.
And my only other question is, and it is in the last contract and this contract, and I think it's our fault, it's the board's fault. But Section 16 says that there's some goals and objectives that the superintendent has to meet. We stink at those, and I mean, how can you do a job and how can you have an evaluation if that's not documented, that's not reviewed? And we keep saying we're gonna do better, and it's in the contract, and that's on us to do. So I'm just pointing it out that we need to do better as a board to put that in place and to do something about it, because it's not fair if suddenly he goes, oh, we didn't like that, or yeah, it's just, everybody needs to know what their goal is. And
there are plans underway. I've actually spoken with Mr. Dean to start that process and talked with Dr. Hampton yesterday that we're going to start developing those goals and objectives so that we can clearly lay out expectations for him and then have measurables that we can, in doing our evaluation. It just kind of got a little wonky there because he was an interim and then he wasn't in the role that long. And so now we have actually a vision and that we can tie things to, and so those plans are underway.
okay, I'm just making sure, because I mean,
I totally agree
this
with
contract's been in place for a year and we've
Yeah.
done nothing.
Yeah.
Or nothing visible anyway.
Yeah.
And I just want to, that was something I highlighted, that we need to do better as a board. Because
yeah.
he's our only employee. We should be
That's
able
right.
to handle,
That's right.
that. So it's only fair to him.
And my thoughts on it are just spend a lot of time with Dr. Hampton to, these are goals that he's going to know more about than I would or any of us would, that we need to sit down, be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-driven, right? So, but none of us are in a place for, to know what that should be without discussion with him.
No, absolutely.
And so
I agree with that.
That's what my thinking is get some time on his calendar and just figure it out until we get it right.
But doing the SMART philosophy
Yeah.
or the STAR philosophy,
Yeah,
whichever
STAR.
one. We need to be doing that, but that is something, and I'm reading both last year's contract and this year's, and both of them, that's in it. If we do this next year and we do a raise performance, what's it gonna be based on if we don't have anything measurable? And I just want to make sure that it's in his best interest.
Certainly, yes, but plans are underway for that, so we've already kind of started that ball rolling, but thank you for calling attention to that. Okay, at this time then, the recommended action is to approve the new contract for Dr. Chris Hampton as presented. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Please cast your votes. Bart.
Why is it doing that?
Yeah, refresh your browser. I had to make a change in the settings. I didn't want to interrupt y'all, so everybody will need to refresh. Oh, well, you can go ahead.
So do we need to cast the votes again?
Y'all can go ahead. No, y'all can go ahead and do your vocal from the purple.
Okay, the votes have been cast, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again, Mr. Rowlett, and also to Ms. Altizer, who has been a great help in that. We'll move now to item 4.2, which is Mr. David Fry and Michael Hubbard, the approval to award a contract for customized student benchmark assessments.
Good evening. We've got an item for your consideration for an assessment program. We issued a request for proposals for a customized benchmark assessment program on February 24th, and we received the proposals on March 20th. There were 3 proposals submitted from EdTech Software Incorporated, Instructure Incorporated, and NCS Pearson Incorporated. All of these proposals were evaluated based on criteria that was specified in the proposal, in the request, and Instructure Incorporated was the vendor that was chosen that best met all the criteria. And price was one of the criteria, and they were the lowest in price substantially also.
Okay.
So we recommend that the board approve a contract amount with Instructure Incorporated not to exceed $94,971. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, hearing no discussion, is there a motion to approve the award of the contract for a customized benchmark assessment program for Kingsport City Schools to Instructure Incorporated, not to exceed the contract amount of $94,971? Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay, please cast your vote. All votes have been captured. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard and Mr. Fry. We will move on and ask Dr. Beauchadden to join us.
So we have funds allocated in our Carl Perkins CTE grant for a virtual dissection table. We have investigated 2 or 3 different vendors that provide this piece of equipment, and we are going to be utilizing the TIPS USA contract to purchase this dissection table from Anatomage Interactive 3D for anatomy and physiology learning virtual dissection table. The cost is $83,550, and as I said, the funds are allocated through our Carl Perkins, our federal Carl Perkins grant. Be happy to answer any questions for you.
Will board members be allowed to come and play?
Absolutely.
And would a family member of a board member, because I have someone at my house who was just in awe of the technology. Yeah, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Unbelievable opportunity.
Dr. Shadden, would you want to just take a minute to give maybe a 30-second commercial for what this technology can do, if you
Sure.
can't really keep it to 30
Yes, absolutely.
minutes?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And, preparing for this meeting, our students are very fortunate, you know that. And equipment like this just takes programs to a different level. And that excites me, when you give students that opportunity. And as I was adding up, we probably have 580 to 600 students in our health science program, which is one of our largest programs. And I was tallying up the number of courses that those students are able to take. We offer 19 different courses just in health science alone. So it's impossible for us to teach every career that's out there, but we try to do our best to connect students to every career that's available in our region. And so 19 different courses are serving 580 to 600 students in a very diverse group of courses. So I didn't even realize we offered 19 just in health science alone. That's not counting automotive and welding and manufacturing, and so that's just in the health science career cluster. So that's anything from our health science education course, which is our introductory course, which 8th graders that are registering now for high school are registering. If they have an interest in health science ed, they're registering for health science education is the first level course. The first level course gets into EKGs. So this is a piece of equipment that I could see used throughout every one of those 19 courses that we offer. So rehabilitative careers, we offer many sections of anatomy and physiology. We offer an ETSU anatomy physiology. Next year we hope to expand it to anatomy physiology 1 and anatomy physiology 2, dual enrollment with ETSU and with Northeast State, so students have 2 different pathways. For anatomy and physiology, we have students in the TCAT LPN program, so they can finish. We have students right now that are finishing their first trimester of a 3-trimester LPN program. Exercise science, physiology, PTTC, physical therapy aid. We have clinicals, which that's still kind of an exploratory. We have a summer clinicals class and a fall clinicals class. And that's where students are still they know health science, but they're trying to explore which avenue of health science they really want to pursue. So it's an exploratory time for them to rotate through a smaller group of healthcare opportunities to see which one they might pique their interest if they want to pursue a degree or a certification in. Medical therapeutics, we have students in May that will sit for their EMR, the first responder exam. We have a group of students for the first time this year that will sit for their EMT, emergency medical technician exam in May. And they actually will finish some of those certifications before they cross the stage at Dobyns-Bennett High School, so they'll potentially be licensed EMTs and EMRs, CNAs, pharmacy technicians. CDM, we offered a program this year for certified dietary managers. So if a student has an interest more in the nutrition side of health science, we offer this year for the first time a certified dietary manager opportunity for those students interested more in the nutrition side. So I could go on and on. You said 30 seconds, and I think my time expired a long time ago. So it's a good thing this isn't public comment, right? Or I'd be in trouble. But the table has the table really has some amazing features, and it has 5 cadavers. That's part of the expense of the table, I believe, is that there's 5 cadaver opportunities. The table, you could, I don't know if you had a chance to review some of the videos of, but you could, to me, it's really better than a cadaver lab, honestly, because there's things I think you can do with that table that you really couldn't do, even with a live cadaver. So the childbirth, it's got lots of simulations, childbirth, blood flow, vasculars, EKGs, heart motions. You can also, the teacher can, to do AFib, the teacher can set the rhythms of the simulations of the heart, and they can simulate AFib. Catheterization, pretty much anything you can think of related to the human body. I'm sure there's some things it can't do, but I've not found those yet, but I'm not a trained health science specialist by any means. But CTs, MRI scans, it has over 1,300 real CT and MRI scans, that you can see from different patients. And these are live scans from real human bodies. So the opportunity here to take our health science program to another level, I think, is before us.
See, it also does animals too.
It does have animals. Yes, I forgot. It's got some animals and even some plants. Got some animals, some mice, and even some opportunities there for maybe some smaller human body parts.
So is there a course that the instructors are going to have to go to? I mean, these videos were awesome. Anybody who hasn't seen them, we need to get you the link, because you could literally take your hand and pretend like you're massaging a heart, and you could, it was a phenomenal tool and technology and huge advancements. But obviously it's not going to be easy to learn. So I'm assuming that they're either going to come in and train a bunch of people, or we're sending people. Can you just explain that part? And then I want to hear Dr. Fletcher, because he's the expert in the medical field, because he was telling us about some advantages the kids were going to have. So be prepared.
Thank you for that question. So I first saw the table at a trade show, and so then I went to Walter State Community College, the Greenville campus, and Walter State Community College has the table. So I talked to those instructors, I talked to the director of the Walter State Community College campus, and got firsthand information from people that are using it. The vendors one aspect, and then I think the people that are using it have a different aspect. And so they spoke very highly of the training. I also reached out to 3 instructors, and that's kind of some quotes in that second page there from those instructors, and they had very positive things to say about the training that the company provides. And so that is included. That's a very extensive training, and the teachers that I spoke with said very positive things about the training and how helpful the company is, because the technology is, the health science piece is one piece, but using the simulations and using the technology is a whole other piece of combining those two for great learning. So thank you.
Well, I think the product really, I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, it's an incredible tool that these students are going to have at their fingertips. There's no real substitution, as we were talking earlier, for hands-on cadaver lab, but that's in a different level of education. But the opportunity that this will give high school students to just dive into the human body and not only see what I was most impressed with about it, and it's very little, was not only the identification of anatomy, but it was also the process of the physiology that you could see. I mean, you can see, one of the things, some may know, but when you look at an EKG strip, those lines mean something. The body's doing something, and you'll be able to see that in real time, as the electrical activities flowing through the heart, and maybe it's just because I'm a visual learner, but daggone, this makes me so jealous because, but it looks like it'll be just an incredible tool, and even though they have these now at Walter State or these places, those students there, they're paying for that. They're paying tuition for that. We're giving these kids the opportunity to have this as a tool and to see and to be much more prepared whenever they step into the classroom, into the anatomy lab. Taking gross anatomy and physiology, I wish I would have had the exposure that these kids, these students, young men and women will have whenever they reach that level where I started. So incredible.
I think it's a great way for also students to know, is this really the career they want to go? Everybody goes, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a whatever. Well, then all of a sudden you're in there, and granted, it's not the blood gushing back at you, and you're not really touching the cadaver per se, but it's still, you're seeing enough gory and guts, but that's the future of medicine. It's not hands-on. It's so much equipment anyway. So I think it's a great way for kids to go, oh, yes, I really do want to do this, or nope. I'm turning green. I don't think this is for me, but they can do that before spending thousands of dollars on credit hours at college.
Either way.
Yep.
All right, kind of a procedural question. First off, we're getting this through the Carl Perkins grant, not through our budgetary tax dollars, which is amazing. But my second question is, are there any recurring expenses on update of software or anything like that that come along with it?
Great question. The table has a 1-year warranty, and we can extend the warranty anytime between the first 5 years of the purchase. So 4 years from now, if we want to extend that warranty, we have the opportunity to do so. Software updates, we get this price includes any software updates for the life of the table. So any software updates that the company makes included in the That was a great question.
There's also, did you see the part where, there's quizzes. It comes loaded with quizzes. That was one of my anatomy finals was, labeling 206 bones. So just a really neat opportunity.
Fantastic. Okay.
But let me also take the opportunity to thank Dr. Shadden for being a visionary in this area, being able to reach out, seek out, and bring the best to our students. That's in part why he was brought to us, and he certainly has delivered on that. And he'll deliver again in about a month when we talk about another piece of grant-funded community-enhancing technology. So thank you, Dr. Shadden.
We really are very grateful. You are always leading the pack, and we're so blessed to have you. Very, very thankful.
That's why you won an award last year.
So if there are no further discussion, the recommended action then is to approve the purchase of an anatomage. No, it's not right. Anatomage. I practiced that. Anatomage. anatomage. Okay, trying to put an extra syllable in there. Interactive 3D anatomy and physiology learning virtual dissection table for career and technical education in the amount of $83,550. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please cast your vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. She was saying hurt now.
You're excused.
Okay, and then start with me. Yeah, it's okay. Here, pull from John your recommendation. And then he made it, and you said it's 16. And then open it up.
Now, please cast your vote.
Just gotta shake out these nerves.
That's okay.
I know y'all be done, but. So, and everybody's cast, it's name closed. Have their numbers in there, so it's
Okay. The votes have been cast. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. With that, we will move on with Mr. Jim Nash. Are you? I wonder why. And Mr. David Fry. And this is tuition rate adjustments.
All right, well, good evening. We are coming to you tonight ultimately with a request to make a change in our tuition rate. But wanted to start out and just kind of give you some information of where we are with tuition, what our rates are, some comparisons to other districts in the region, and just some other data, and then answer any questions you have regarding that. So as you can see, what's there in front of you, we currently have 312 tuition students. That's, in my tenure in this position over the last 9 years, that's we stay pretty constant, 310, 320, 325. I mean, and probably before that time, that's been a pretty constant number. Our rates, which the last change was made by the board in 2018, Sullivan County is $1,400 per year, Hawkins County $2,400, and any other Tennessee county is $3,400. We do give a discount to KCS and full-time employees or City of Kingsport employees. If they live in Sullivan County, that rate is $700. All other Tennessee counties is $1,400. And just another small piece of detail, people can pay that all at once up front. They do get billed typically monthly for 10 months. So if they're paying $1,400, they get 10 bills of $140 each. But essentially, they just need to be current at the end of the school year before proceeding to the next school year from a tuition perspective. Get that back up. All right. So on that, and I won't go over all of these, and I just pulled these from their district web pages is where I got all of this information. But you can see that our rates overall are higher than any of the other Northeast Tennessee city rates. There is some variance for sure. There's some interesting things on there. Like, for example, one district has free tuition at one school. Another district has a family cap of $2,200. We're not asking for things of that nature, but I just wanted to point this out. But we do have overall the highest rates. And I can tell you anecdotally that when I get calls from folks, say, from outside of Sullivan and Hawkins County, the moment they're all for it, and then they say, well, how much is that? I'm like, well, you live in Washington County, it's $3,400. The typical response is, oh. And they're very thankful and appreciative. And we do have students from there, but not as many. We do think there's opportunities where we have room, and if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, that there's opportunities to add tuition students. A question that I think will come up is, if we lower it to this amount, and the request we're asking is that it just be a flat rate of $1,000 per student, and then for employees of the school system of the City of Kingsport, that it would still be that half, where it was $1,400 and $700, that we would be $1,500. It would take, to make up that gap of funding, it would take right at 25 students would be a little bit more than that, 24 would be a little less, so 25 students to make up that gap. And then with each additional student, we get the state funding that comes with them, and the tuition rate, so that's 8,000, is it 7,000? 7,075 is the state funding amount, and $1,000 per tuition. So just some quick numbers, like if we had 50 additional, that'd be a little over $206,000. If we had 100, that'd be $610,000 additional dollars to the budget. It would just keep going up incrementally. When people say 50, that's a lot, but if you think over 13 grade levels, K to 13, that's really not that many. 4 per grade level would be 52. And there are some places where we would not have room in certain grade levels in schools. We typically always have, even in our full schools, in kindergarten, there might be a few that are approved. We have to monitor kindergarten very closely. Those are the last tuition students that are approved, because first off, we're going to have priority with our zoning, our in-city residents. They will always get priority. And then we have with kindergarten, because though we've had kindergarten enrollment, those numbers still kind of stagger in. And it can even be sometimes after school has started that we realize, oh, okay, at school A, we've got 4 teachers and we've got room for 2 or 3 more. Yes, we can approve these. And so kindergarten is late, and we say that up front. I talk to kindergarten parents get stressed out. I talk to them all summer long and say, we're working on it. I get it, you know. And I will say in my time, we have never turned away a student from wanting to be in tuition like in kindergarten. They may not get their first choice, but we can always find a location. And sometimes families, for a variety of decisions, may or may not go with that choice, but we've been make that available. We also do look, particularly at the high school, at attendance and grades and discipline. I sit down with Dr. Tate. I did it with Dr. Hampton previously. We review all of those applicants. They have to turn transcripts and other information into us for high school. So typically, it's not a problem. I can tell you that we've looked at the data, the academic achievement, discipline, all those types of things, on average, are much better. I mean, they're strong students typically. And then if we have a student that has problems or concerns, you know, we talk to them throughout the year, but then we may say, you know, it's time for you to return to your home district. And we have, it's not frequent, but there are opportunities or times when we've had to do that.
Is there, I just recall this from the past being an issue, is a zoning exception placed before a tuition student?
100%.
Right, like
100%. So we will do all of that work, the zoning, and just to make sure people understand, the zoning is in-city residents, and I'm just going to use Robinson Sevier just because there's 2 schools. Kid lives in the Sevier zone, and the family wants him to go to Robinson, or vice versa. They live in a Robinson zone, and they want to go to Sevier. They complete a zoning exception. It's based upon seats available. Now, if you have 10 requests to go to Robinson in 6th grade and 10 requests to go to Sevier in 6th grade, they're all going to be approved because that's a net 0. But 100% zoning is dealt with first. Tuition is always outside of DB because there's no zoning for DB. But we always deal with zoning first, and then we start approving tuition after that.
One other thing I noticed, that some schools, they differentiate between grade levels, but we're just saying a flat rate, regardless of the grade, $1,000 with KCS employees or city employees being given the 50%.
Right, at $500.
Okay?
And
That's
this
simple. I'd like to keep it simple, yeah.
And this would be, obviously, it would start not for the remainder of this school year, starting with the beginning of the 24-25 school year. Oh, and out of state, and in case anyone asks that, we do have that rate. Again, in my 9 years of being in this position, I think I can think of 3 students. It is extremely rare that we ever have an out-of-state tuition. Usually where that is, it's a family that maybe like 12 months from now, we're going to move into the region, and they live, it's always been Virginia in my time, and then they're going to move in. I don't know of any that have been 13-year K-12 Virginia or out-of-state students. It's extremely rare.
Have you ever had instances where you have a tuition student, whether it's for 1 year, 2 years, and then that grade level is full, and now they're no longer able, if that's happened, how?
We've never had to tell a student they could not be in the district. Not in my tenure in this position, but I know of some previously where they may have been at school A, and we had to shift them to school B. But I do not know of an occasion where we've ever said, I'm sorry, we're totally full and you'll have to leave Kingsport City Schools.
Go ahead, were you done? So I'm just going to use easy math here, so I'm
Sure.
a little slow here. $1,400, or we'll call it $1,600. Tuition.
Well, it's 1,400 for
It's
Sullivan
14,
County.
excuse me, 1,400. So if there's 312 students at if we lower it by $400, that's if everybody was Sutherland County, that's a loss of $187,000 in revenue. So we're going to add 187 children back on the rolls, is what you're saying?
No, if you got, you have to think you also would get the state revenue that comes with that.
Yeah, I understand that. So you're saying that the okay, let me back all the way up. What does it cost for a child? What is it actual? Because I've asked this number several times and I've never gotten a good number.
This is the day prior.
Per pupil expenditure,
Yeah, the per pupil expenditure was our actual cost per kid. I thought it was like 9,000.
it's close to that. I'd have to go back and look and see what that is. I don't have that number off the top of my head. We always get that number from the state's website because I can't calculate the number that they give because they include some state allocated expenses to that, and I don't think I need to produce a number that's different from what the state says.
Well, what if you just divide, how many students we have, 7,300 or something? Well, you just divide that into the annual budget, that would give you some gross idea of what, right?
Well, I mean, or if you want to talk in big round numbers, I mean, you could say we have a $100 million
Budget.
and someone's got a calculator, divide
Yeah,
that.
You're over $10,000 ahead. There's some portion of this that's just to have, yeah, it's a fixed cost, just to have, like, just to fire up the lights, you got.
Sure. Some cost.
Right. So that's why I've asked for this number because I was here last time we raised the rates, and it was because we got cut on funding from Sullivan County yet again, because they love to do that. The elections have consequences. The election coming up, make sure that you ask the people that you vote for whether they're going to cut funding to the school systems yet again. So we raised this by $200, which didn't seem like a whole lot, but to lower it by 400 seems like an enormous amount. And you're saying 25 students is all it takes. Well, what's the confidence interval that we're going to add 25 students?
I would say I have a high level of confidence in the folks that I have talked to. I have had, again, it's anecdotal conversations I've had with people, but including employees that I've talked to who have children who attend in other systems. Those that I've known, I have intentionally gone and just said, hey, what would you think, knowing that this was going to be proposed and not approved, but, you know, what would your thoughts be? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, I would consider that. It's even if you're an employee and you live in Hawkins or Washington or Greene or, you know, outside of Sullivan County, that $1,400, $140 a month for 10 months, that's significant money for families, and where that would get for an employee down to $500 or $100 a month for others, I think we absolutely would. And in 25, so again, 13 grade levels, so basically 2 per grade level would be 26. My confidence is pretty high that we would get that because just the number of conversations that I get, that I already am getting every spring and then over the course of the summer, that is a regular part of my job and conversation that I have ongoing. So I feel very good. I guess what I would say to that, if for some reason, if it didn't, could we come back and say we need to change them? Absolutely.
I mean, $33 a month. Is what
But
it
we
boils
know,
down to.
for example, and I'm hesitant to put the exact number, but we are much lower percentage-wise on tuition than Bristol, significantly lower. Greenville City, I do not know in Johnson City and Elizabeth and their numbers, and so I don't want to. But they have a much higher percentage of their student body, where ours is about 4% that are tuition than we do.
Greenville's a very unique situation, because when we raised that, the superintendent at the time had a lot of heartburn over it because he said they never raised tuition because so many of them went to the city versus the county because it's just unique.
Sure.
Bristol is unique as well. And so I have a twofold concern. Number one, this is the great sucking sound of pulling kids out of maybe Sullivan County or maybe places that need these kids right? The second part is if they pass this stupid thing at the state and they start offering up vouchers, is this a way in which to pay, like, do we accept vouchers? Is this a way to be the low-cost leader to accept vouchers? I mean, like, how is that going to impact us? Because that's a very serious.
Dr. Hampton, can you answer that question?
I mean, this option exists regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So vouchers aren't really, this question came up with a legislator who was surprised that it happened, that it already existed, that students could go from a county system to a city system or from a city system to a city system. So it already exists. The opportunity is, and it really, we've not discussed at all being a vacuum to pull students. Mm-hmm. But it is an opportunity to generate revenue. It is an opportunity to expose students and to provide a resource. And it's also an opportunity to bring foot traffic into Kingsport that doesn't already come to Kingsport. It's a reason to stop and get gas. It's a reason to stop and pick up something on the way home. So in addition to generating the benefits to the school system and to families, it also has an opportunity to support the local economy.
Oh, I got you, yeah.
But I do think it does provide students, families, some choice in opportunities like this table that we just, you know, if you have a child that maybe you don't live in our district and you have a child that's really interested in that or whatever, or extracurricular activities, band, orchestra, other programs, then it makes it a little more doable for them to come in. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if this actually played out, but I know there was a teacher at Kennedy who was actually adopting a couple of Kennedy students, and she was going to have to leave Kennedy because she lived in Bristol, and she couldn't afford to pay tuition and still teach at Kennedy. She was going to have to go teach in Bristol because that's where she lived, and that's where she could afford to send the new children that she had taken on. So, I mean, that was a conversation we had. I don't know exactly how that played out, but I know it was a concern because she just couldn't afford, and she couldn't teach here and send small kids there. So,
to your point about this great sucking sound from surrounding counties, I've thought a lot about that too. But I was reminded of a time going down to the city and requesting funding for increasing our budget one year. And they were in there wrestling with how to manage their tax dollars. And I found myself being really empathetic, but then it struck me, my job is to advocate for the children of Kingsport. And it's not my job to be on the BMA and manage that's the way I feel about this. Our job is to offer the best product possible for children that want to come into our system. And I can't take responsibility to look out for Sullivan County, their boards or their government or Hawkins County or anybody else. We're here for Kingsport City students. And we want to offer as our citizenry, we want to offer the best opportunity for any children that can gain access to it. That's what we're charged with, I believe.
I'm only having issues. We last approved a tuition rate in 2018. That's 6 years ago. Taxes have gone up. People are moving to Kingsport City and paying city taxes so they can come to Kingsport City schools. They're getting that benefit. We have a lot of phenomenal programs in Kingsport City, and it costs money to have those programs. And for us to reduce the tuition by what we're doing, I'm not really a fan of that, because I think if you want your kid here, yes, I understand some people, we have exceptions. We always can make an exception. I do think we ought to offer a better rate for our teachers to be able to educate their kids in Kingsport City. And I don't know, if there's a law or, that 50% is all we can do. But I do think our teachers and those staff that work in Kingsport City ought to be able to educate their kids here. But to drop the rate when everything else has increased and people have moved to Kingsport City, paying the city taxes so that kids can come here, and all of a sudden 6 years later we're like, oh yeah, our schools are really cheap, we want you to come. And I know it's offering opportunities, but parents are only willing to drive so far. Back to the whole voucher thing, parents are willing to drive only so far to drop their kids. We've been in that 3-12 range for as many years as you can remember. So to get it to another 25, you're saying yeah, we've got confidence in doing that. But we also have a lot of subdivisions being built in Kingsport. We had a conversation a year ago about where are we going to put all of our students that we have in Kingsport, yet we want to drop tuition and bring more kids in that we don't have room in our long-term plan to educate. We're spinning wheels and we're not speaking we're speaking on both sides of our mouth, and I guess that's the part I'm not getting. And, maybe there's a better picture, but if we're worried about space in our classrooms and now we're reducing tuition so we can increase them, so we can bring kids from Hawkins County and Greenville or Washington or wherever we want to bring them from, I don't like it. I just don't think we're not sending the same message. I mean, if we are willing to reduce rate to grab kids, then why are we needing to raise a bond to pay for a new school to house our own children in Kingsport?
If we reduce it to zero, I mean, it'd be $1,000, $1,400 loss, but would there be, I mean, at some level, there needs to be skin in the game. This is why we have children that are of the tuition kids. I remember hearing that these are some of the most well-behaved children.
Yeah, I could tell you, now this is just Dobyns-Bennett data, because just to pull from one source, but it is a large percentage of it's roughly a third of the tuition students. But they represent, it's a little higher percentage of enrollment, 5% of the students at DB, but it's less than 1% of disciplinary actions.
Right.
And I scrolled through all this personally. I can tell you they were extremely tardies, minor infractions.
Right.
And and then the GPA, weighted GPA 3.56 for tuition, non-tuition 3.03, unweighted 3.35 for tuition, 2.9 for non-tuition. And what I would also say is we have had a decrease in enrollment. We are, is it 125? About 125 students less. We do not have room at every location, but we absolutely have room. And where we have some of the most room is at Dobyns-Bennett. And we would monitor this every year. So could we, this year, approve more? And then once you're in, again, folks are in. They don't typically leave. They don't typically get turned away. But could there be years, let's say we have an increase of 30. Next year we might, so that would put us at 343. Whatever that number is, and then, we might stay at that for a little bit, and then it could fluctuate based upon enrollment. Absolutely, I understand that, but right now, with the revenue is generated with the new funding formula based upon enrollment, and so every time we get a new tuition student, we get those state dollars for enrollment, and we get the tuition funds that go along with that.
If we don't have room, we just say no.
Correct.
It's pretty much that simple to me.
Yeah, I tell parents every year, no, you cannot go to school A or school B, but we can offer school C,
And
D,
there's
or
a
E.
tremendous misconception in this country that we're getting overpopulated. That's not true. Read Peter Zion's books about, and he's got some data-rich information showing that if you're not producing 2.1 children per couple, you're not replacing 2 people. And the average in this country is much less than that. So I'm not as concerned about that, especially since we can just say, we don't have a place for you right now. We don't have the room for you, unfortunately. But check with us next year.
And then if enrollment did increase to that level, we again are getting that state funding associated with in-city residents. And then at that time, we would say, no, I'm sorry, check with us next year.
And here's another thing too. We're in here, we've danced around the whole voucher stuff. And we've been pretty quiet as a body about making public statements about how we feel. Well, clearly, something is afoot. And to me, this is us reacting to the marketplace a little bit, trying to compete. So if a voucher becomes available and I'm a parent in, say, Hawkins County, and I think, well, I really like my kids to go to what I think is a better school. It's going to cost me this to send them to Teresa Haywood's class at Jackson, or it's going to cost me this amount to send them to some private school. Well, when I couldn't even consider Teresa Haywood's class at Jackson because I couldn't afford it, it wasn't an option. And so they don't go to private school, they just get stuck. We're reacting to the marketplace to a certain degree. The market is changing. with a voucher program. Nothing may come of it, but over time, I just don't think people are going to leave it alone until something happens. It probably won't happen this legislative session, but it may, I don't know. But I do think, again, I get your point about student population. And no way we would ever accept more kids than we can educate at the current level. We just say, no, we can't afford it. We don't have a place for you this year.
Dr. Hampton, can you speak to, I know there's been conversations about the school at Inland Garden would really be the next step in building a new campus, and that's because we need a new school because of the facilities themselves, not necessarily population.
Well, I can speak to that, but I will address the population as well, because if you look at our schools, the 11 schools that have school numbers range in percent population from 68% capacity up to 100% capacity. So at those schools with 100% capacity, interestingly, there still may be some seats available in certain grade levels. So if Dobyns-Bennett, for example, were at 100% capacity, it could be that the senior class is at 110%, which leaves some wiggle room in other grades. Now that's just those are made up numbers, but the 68% to the 100% is accurate. So we have a school today that had a third of the seats would be available. Now, if you don't want that school, if that's not the school you desire for your child to go, and you desire for your child to go to the school that has 100% capacity at X grade or Y grade, as Mr. Dean said, the answer might be no there, but it also opens a conversation to say, we do have third grade seats available at the following 3 schools if you'd like to entertain those. You know, Kingsport to us might be vast, but it's really not. You know, all of our schools have a level of, are reasonably close to each other. And then part of the facility plan was to address crowding in some spots, but the overall focus was to remove schools from the role that were expensive to maintain and not appropriate for what 2025 calls for instructionally. The class sizes, the technology, the infrastructure, those things it limits the level of competitiveness and the quality of learning that we can provide to our students. So, and you all, and I've shared this pretty openly, we're in a bit of a budget quandary as well right now with the decrease in 125 students. That's well over $800,000 that we're at a deficit, in addition to the county tax, the property tax reallocation, and some other sales tax reimbursements that have hit us directly this year, that we are looking for some opportunities to create great opportunities for students, but also to support the bottom line of our budget. So a variety of factors that went into the conversation. And really, if you look at the chart, and I shared it with the board probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I mean, we've really priced ourselves out at some levels with students who might, because if you think, the boundaries, if you go all the way into Rock Springs, I happen to live there, it's closer for me to go to Washington County schools, or I could get to a Washington County high school more easily than I could get to a Kingsport City high school. So our boundaries are such that it makes it, if price is a factor, this eliminates some of those boundaries and some of those barriers from students choosing to participate or choosing to seek Kingsport City schools as an option.
Could we split the difference, and instead of going to 1,000, saying, instead of 1,400, do 1,200 or do something different? Because would we still be able to, that's a huge savings for Hawkins County people if we dropped that direction, and they would be a major contributor to, especially, Washington, Sevier, those schools. But maybe we need to think about a compromise that direction, or where do we want to attract? But I don't know. I just feel the taxes that we're paying in Kingsport, the need for all the neighborhoods coming in. We keep talking about the growth in Kingsport, which is phenomenal, and we worry even, we have 2 schools we know that are definitely underutilized. We have a lot that are almost at maximum capacity. That's how we started the whole conversation 4 years ago with changing North into a middle school so we could expand, get out of Jackson, which was old, expand the elementary that direction. Then we rebooted 2 years later and started looking elsewhere. But maybe we just look at another proposal. Maybe this isn't the right one. Maybe 1,000 across the board is not the right one. Back to, as Tim Dean says, we don't have to vote on everything right away. Let's look at other options. But I'm not sure that this is the best one. There's a lot of questions. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I'm just not comfortable with it.
How many KCS teachers currently are paying tuition?
Here's all the data.
Okay, so that would be KCS staff and City of Kingsport staff. It's 100.
So a third of all the tuition students,
Right
roughly?
at a third, yes.
Okay. And they're paying currently 1,000?
It depends on what county they live in. So we have 67 in Sullivan County, 21, and then 67. Yes, 67 in Sullivan County, 21 in Hawkins County, and 12 in other Tennessee counties. So the 67 are paying 700, the 21 and the 12, so the 33 are paying 1,400.
1,400. Okay, so we got 21 plus 12, 1,400. So about 49,000 for that one batch, and then 700 times 67. So there's roughly about 100 grand, roughly in tuition being paid by employees.
Yep. I can tell you how much per county if you'd like.
So what I'm more inclined to do is make it free for all of those people, because that would be a huge incentive for someone to come and work for us do it? Yeah, I'm way more inclined to make this as an incentive for teachers and employees and people who want to work for our great system and want to contribute and have children here, especially if they live in a neighboring county. Because I do know of several that do that. They live in a county and they work here, maybe because their other spouse works in the other community and that's just where they've set up. But that would be more, in my mind, more of an incentive, because then it would help us with recruitment. It would help the city with recruitment, and it would give an incentive to the people who have already been paying into the system here. They would suddenly get a raise, which I know they would be appreciative of that, especially with that many kids, because I always appreciate a raise. I've got a lot of kids. Tuition is tax deductible. If you use a 529, you can use 529 for this, I believe, can't you?
I just, I'm a product of public education. I'm pro public education. I'm pro private education. I'm pro whatever fits the parents' needs to each student, whatever brings out the best in that student. And so I want to do what we can to help parents make these decisions. And if a decrease is what helps us give kids a better opportunity, give our HR department better recruiting tools, I'm all for it. I will say, go back just a couple of meetings ago when we talked about the deficit in our pre-K program, though, and so those conversations. But you all are the experts. You do a great job. I mean, you obviously put a lot of work into it. You're confident that this type of change won't. I see a reduction in revenue on this side, but I hear this idea of it will actually generate revenue. So that's I guess that's where I'm kind of at a little bit of a disconnect. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but okay, so there's a different cost per student. Like a K student, it costs different from a 1 versus a 12, right? And is it my understanding that high school students are actually a little bit cheaper than, is it in inverse?
According to the weights that have according to the weights that the state used to fund on high school students.
Oh, you get more for high school students, so it costs ostensibly more? Okay.
And it's important to note that K-12 students are subsidized by the state. We get a per pupil amount, $7,075 at least per pupil, and then we get outcome bonuses beyond that. We get no subsidies for pre-K. Like there's no help for that. And so that's why it seems like it's odd that we would raise one and lower the other, but we're raising one to continue to offer that opportunity and lowering the other to fill the seats that don't have students in them right now.
And we do not, I think you all know this, but just to make sure for clarity, tuition is not an option at the pre-K setting. Now, there is childcare, ECLC, which is different than pre-K, but true pre-K is only in-city residents, again, not the ECLC programs. Those could not.
And what you said, they don't pay tuition.
The pre-K students do not pay tuition. They are city residents.
I do like the idea of, as I mentioned, even reduced, but even free. We do know we've struggled to recruit teachers. We know we have teachers coming from other districts. We know we have teachers leaving so they can educate their kids in another community that's closer to home or cheaper. So if we could do that, I mean, I know we have lots of teachers that have children. I mean, that's their passion. If we could do that and then not leave, somehow come up with another number, whether leave it where it is or what for, those others, I think it would be a very interesting way to try to recruit, try to enhance or entice people. You would still get them from surrounding counties. You could even do it, I know we've got some teachers that are living in, Abingdon that drive this way if they had a child, offer them the same. And I know that would go against the out-of-state thing, but I think it would offer a good selection pool for recruiting our teachers that have youngsters. And it would also let them be closer to their child so they can participate in those, parent activities or parent engagement things, where if they're so far away, we either lose a teacher for a day and need a substitute, or the parent misses out on their kids, reading theater or, music concert or whatever in the middle of the day. So,
Do you have an idea actually how many of that 100 are actually teachers? Because that's teachers and city employees.
I do not off the top of my head. I can get you that information. I could get you a breakdown on teachers, IAs, and city employees, but I do not.
Okay.
I don't
Because
really-
I'm always, I want to support our teachers in the best way we possibly can, but that is just, that's not a huge, we're going to kind of
If I had
cap
to
on that.
roughly estimate, and again, this is a rough estimate, I would say it's like 60% KCS, 40% city. At one point I would want to make, Ms. Spires, just a point of clarification. If they were to be an out-of-state student, we would not get the state funding for that student. So I personally would not be an advocate of changing the out-of-state rate because we don't get the state allotment per child for that.
For those that have to hire people, do your instincts tell you that this carrot would be significant or no?
Chomping into the
It's a little hard to tell, I think, without more data. I do think it would be attractive to people, especially as we get more and more of these out-of-state people.
Jim's happy to go.
I'll just lean over.
I'm just bringing up
say, it could be beneficial for people, especially moving in from out of state and out of the area. I really have not had this much as a point of conversation with people, so it's hard to really give you a good feel for, is there a large desire for this? Would it have a significant impact? I'd be hesitant to say without a little bit more data behind it. I do have occasionally our current staff or people coming in ask. I do get questioned occasionally. I'm certainly in favor of anything that is attractive for recruiting and hiring. I do think it would be something that is certainly attractive to people and might, for those coming in from out of state, out of our district, and out of the area, help them make some decisions. But I'd be hesitant to put a weight to it until maybe we knew a little bit more.
So
Certainly
as
attractive.
proposed, it would be $500, so $50 a month for them to send their kids.
So my question was though, if we're interviewing a teacher, a chemistry teacher with a PhD in chemistry for a job who's at Dobyns-Bennett, and we're able to look at that person, knowing this person can go to work anywhere around here, any school they choose, and say, and if you have children, they can go, if you live in Hawkins County, they can come here at no.
It's certainly something I would promote, and we would promote, I think, as a district. We would certainly want to have that as part of our conversation with them, to appeal to them. So yes, I think that would be an attractive thing to be able to say.
Do we have any numbers on how many teachers I know it's a weird question. How many teachers have kids that they are not putting they live in like Hawkins County and they're educating their kids in Hawkins County, but they're coming here? So do we have any numbers that, we have 25 parents that are teachers and they're not bringing their kids here because they're not paying they don't want to pay the tuition or whatever? Do we have that? I don't even know if we can have that.
We do not specifically have that data. I mean, we are aware of families that we talk to. I mentioned that earlier conversation I've had, but I could not tell you specifically that we have X number of teachers or staff and each has this many children and they elect to go to
2.1.
Yeah, 2.1, that number, correct. So, but I do know for sure, I talked to 2 this week. One lives in Hawkins County and one lives in Washington County. That their children go to those systems. And I said, would you consider this were it to be passed? And their both answers, absolutely.
These are employees?
These are employees. But
So at the $500 rate?
At the 500, because I was just saying, this is what we're going to discuss at the board meeting, because I really was just wanting some feedback from them, what they would think, and we've talked to some others. And I guess one thing I would say, no matter, we may change nothing, and I understand that's your all's decision, but not just that employee rate, but that 3,400 and that 2,400, that it's just a lot, and I think that's worth discussion.
And I think that part is worth a discussion, and I had a thought on something with.
We charge $3,400 for Washington County?
For any outside of Sullivan and Hawkins, it is $3,400.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we got lower.
So that's where I think, I really think.
But everyone I know that does that, it's always Washington County. I just know, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow.
Okay.
But I really think we need to, maybe table this and look at different options on, what we can do in this tuition, the reduced tuition for our staff. That includes all staff, right? Whether it's somebody here or somebody who's in custodian or full-time.
staff.
Okay.
And if I can make one point about that, we talk a lot about teachers, but just keep in mind, we have just as difficult a time recruiting our instructional assistants, custodians, our school nutrition staff, although a lot of those are part-time positions. But there's plenty of other support staff that could benefit from that and that could help us in that area as well.
And that's what I was thinking, is if it went to everybody, and that's what I was trying to clarify, but if it is a full-time employee, whether they are chief custodian, chief nose picker, whatever, their child can come to our school with either reduced or hopefully maybe free tuition or something, so we can generate new blood, I guess. So.
Well, I think, I'm convinced, if you want to have the best, there's 2 things at play. You got to pay them, and you got to have a really good work environment, a good culture. And I think we certainly have a really great culture that's attractive to teachers. And, I'm thinking from the point of view of the my thoughts have evolved as we talked about this to more the point of view of the teacher or the employee, I should say, or the city employee or whoever. And I think culturally, if I was a teacher teaching at Dobyns-Bennett and coaching basketball right now, and I had to pay $500 for my child to come to school here, it would be a point of contention with me a little bit. Look, I'm putting in all these hours, and I could be in the private sector making a lot more money than I am here. I'm doing it because I love children, and it feels like you're slapping me in the face a little bit. Let me bring my own child to where I work. You see what I'm saying? So, I think we got to minimum do something for them. And like you said, Todd, to me, the numbers that exist now are outrageous.
I had no idea we hated Washington County, apparently.
For the benefit of the employees who might be watching or listening, we came to the table with a good opportunity. What they're talking about is making it better. So it's like I don't want people to have tuned in late and to assume that we've made an offer that
We don't hate Washington.
that has not been
Previous boards
faculty
hate
friendly, because it certainly is. And I'll add, not that it will influence the decision we're making tonight, but just so people are aware, we have had this conversation with our city manager and the mayor so that they're fully aware that this was going to be on the agenda tonight. We've talked through the numbers with them, and they were aware and gave a supportive nod to us moving forward in this presentation.
I feel like we fleshed this out sufficiently. I'm in favor of just, rather than tabling and coming back, I'm in favor of let's just do it here. So I'd make the motion that, call for the vote.
Okay. So the recommended action then is to, get back over here to approve a tuition rate of $1,000 per student, with Kingsport City Schools and City of Kingsport employees being charged $500 per student, with rates decreasing by $50 per year for each additional child in a family. That would be a $25 reduction for KCS and City of Kingsport employees for additional. So is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. If you would cast your vote.
So we just threw out that whole free for teachers.
We can come back and revisit it. This is just to pass what's on the table right now.
I think we should revisit.
Yeah.
We'll start collecting that tomorrow. I mean, that's no problem.
I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't just look at that and then do it all at one instead of doing this.
This is an immediate decrease. We can go ahead and publish it. And then
For next year.
She can publish it.
That would give-
Next year, so.
But we could come back and revisit just the teachers. I mean, this, Washington County needs to be just.
Yeah, I agree.
In August.
Could you come back in a couple months and amend this specific? Or is this another motion? I don't know.
But we can come back and revisit it if necessary.
And I think there's certainly the will of the board that we take a hard look at it, at least in my.
But I think if we do it, but I guess my point is if we do it, if we say let's do it next meeting, we're taking it. I'm sorry, if we say we're going to do it next meeting, then we've got time, we can look at it, we're still taking action. Where if we go, we're going to come back and revisit it, it's going to be like the goals on Chris's contract, that a year from now, we're still going to go, oh yeah, we forgot we're supposed to do that. But if we put it as an action item to do it next meeting and look at it, do we want to offer free tuition? Do we want to go down to $1,000, which we may or may not? We definitely want to correct Washington County. But I think we have a lot of questions that this, I don't think, really makes all of us feel good. But if we say, let's put it on the agenda for next meeting, we've got time to flesh this out, and then, it's there, it's visible, we're not going to forget it.
Yeah, I agree, but I think we should go ahead and vote on this now.
Okay, and we have voted.
Yeah,
We have
okay.
voted. So the votes have been cast, and so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye, nay.
Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Fry, Mr. Nash, Ms. Guthrie, thank you so much. Okay, so that wraps up the business portion. Our next meeting will be a work session on April 23rd, and I will just go ahead and tell you to eat a good dinner before you come, or bring snacks, because it's going to be a lengthy meeting. So Dr. Hampton will be sending information out about that between now and then. Our next business meeting will be May 14th. There is not a work session scheduled for that month. Same thing in June. We'll have our business meeting June 11th with no work session scheduled right now. And then July 9th would be our next business meeting. One thing I wanted to bring up also, I think you all probably got information on a Camp TSBA. It's a virtual camp. If you're interested, that you can sign up for those. If you're not able to attend those, they're going to be usually around noon. 7 different offerings, I think. Let me look here. 6 different classes that are offered. Some of the things they're offering, it's about TISA, how's it working, where are we going. Another session's TSSAA's role and impact on school athletics. The role of the state's money cop, that's our own Jason Mumpower, and those kinds of things. So you can get on TSB and look at that, but if you aren't able to attend virtually at the appointed times, there are recordings available. So that's something that if you are interested in some additional training, it's available. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. The first one starts tomorrow, so just wanted to throw that out there. And if there are no other discussion items, then we are adjourned. Roll Tribe.